It is time for another professional match of StarCraft 2, and what I got for you today is a Zerg versus Protoss on Abiogenesis LE. Spawning here in the bottom right hand corner of the map and playing with the blue Zerg drones, we have Nerchio. And his opponent spawning in the opposite corner, he's playing with the red Protoss probes. We are currently looking in the main base of DNS. So of course both of these players are very successful, in particular in the European scene of StarCraft 2. Nerchio actually apparently recently did an event called Nerchio versus 100. I'm not entirely sure if I understood the gist of it correctly, but I'm pretty sure it was like an offline event where you could essentially challenge Nerchio and he would go up against 100 players. While they were perfectly capable of seeing his screen while playing against him, he was just playing a regular game. And essentially the idea was to see if it would be doable for Nerchio to win against 100 strangers. And spoiler alert, apparently he did not lose a single match that day, even though several grandmasters and whatnot showed up. I quite like it whenever those kind of events are indeed being played at you know, tournament stages and all those kind of things, right? It's always really cool to try and test the waters, how you would fare against a professional of, for example, the likes of Nerchio. Now, DNS, of course, he's a French Protoss player, definitely one of the very best in Europe. He's up there together with the guys like, for example, Showtime, guys like, for example, Drogo, guys like, for example, Harstem. Although I think most people would probably consider Showtime to be the very best. When it comes to playing Protoss in Europe, there is no denying that DNS is very, very good at what he does. And so far, he's done a magnificent job to simply delaying that Zerg expansion from going up. That does mean that Nerchio will essentially be forced to play something a little bit more aggressive. He did indeed go for that very quick spawning pool. Rather than taking the third base, which I've seen Nerchio do many a times in StarCraft 2, he decided to go for the quick spawning pool instead. I think that's mostly due to the fact that we are indeed on Abiogenesis. Of course, the rush distances on this map are very, very small, and even if you do take the third, your opponent can just cross the distance so very rapidly. Now, Zerglings will be available here, and there's obviously no adepts or whatever available just yet here for our Protoss player in red. One Zergling trying to bait out that single Zealot. I think now that the second Zealot has spawned, though, I think he might be able to get a good... Oh my god, that's actually really nicely done there. Just barely did not get the kill there on that Zealot. Obviously, the game can end really quickly. Now, link speed only just now started here by Nerchio. He did not really quite manage to kill the cybernetic score there, but obviously DNS, he knew what was going on and he purposefully delayed his own Nexus as well. Now, interestingly enough, Nerchio has continued mining more and more gas. I'm kind of curious to see where he's gonna go with that, because there's actually now a Roach Warren follow-up as well as that metabolic boost upgrade. Zerglings will not finish their speed upgrade for another little while. 2 adepts now on this side of the map as well. That single Zealot still overlooking the only one that was remaining, or is remaining rather, at home. Stargate now also coming up here for a Protoss player. It does look like DNS kind of wants to test the waters, but he doesn't know quite about the timing here of Zergling speed in particular. Very important scout. Oh my god, no way! I was gonna say very important scout there. I mean, look at that. That must have quite literally been like, I don't know, a millimeter or two? That's crazy. He just barely did not get the scout off right there on the Roach Warren. That would have been a really big tell. I'm curious to see what DNS is gonna get out of this Stargater right now, though, because, I mean, if you would have seen the Roach Warren, he definitely would have gone for a Void right here. I think even an Oracle would still be okay. If he goes Phoenix first, he may be in a little bit of trouble, because Nerchio is already setting himself up for a very aggressive push. And actually, even the Queens are now moving across. Now, apparently DNS's star senses are still tingling, though. He recognizes that something is not quite right. Even though he hasn't seen the move out just yet. The Queens, they're gonna be a massive, massive issue here as well, actually. 2 Queens are gonna deal with a Void Ray just fine. Actually, the Zerglings are trying to head on over to the northern end to maybe see if there is some proxy going down there for our Protoss player. Not quite the case. A single Ravager will morph in, but DNS now fully aware of what exactly it is that he is going up against. Another shield battery immediately being created as well. Void Ray now out. This is going to be absolutely critical. The micro between the Queens and the Void Ray are going to be the game decisive moment right here. Roaches trying desperately to stay alive here as well. More and more shield batteries are coming up. I really like this for DNS. The Warp Gate upgrade just now finished here too, and here we go. Zerg finally starting to move forward. He got himself a bunch of the kills there, still trying to rain those corrosive biles. The cybernetics core eventually does go down, but look at the amount of shield batteries, right? You don't even need a massive army if you've got a bunch of shield batteries. Still, not a whole lot of worker kills just yet here for our Zerg player in blue. There we go. Probes finally pulled off the line. Obviously, you can still sort of out-DPS this, but already, right, the second Void Ray is now available. A third one will be chrono boosted out here as well. 3 probes so far going down, make that 4, maybe 5 here in total. But this is really, well, I guess it's 6. So this is really not the damage here that the Zerg player was looking for. And Nerchio recognized it as well. Maybe he could have continued onwards, actually, with maybe like a Zergling flood into the main base, because DNS really hasn't got a whole lot of defenses there at all. I'm actually quite surprised he still ended up losing 6 probes there, right? Initially, his defense was absolutely spot on. Probably could have gotten away with only losing like 2 probes there at the very most, but regardless, he manages to hold on there, and while Nerchio has already been droning up, he's at a bit of a deficit for sure. There's no lair, there's no real defense here available, there's no third base, of course, not a lot of workers, and on top of that, he's still forced to make some units here just in case of like an adept run-by, or I guess shade-by would be a more appropriate term. A couple of Void Rays now out, of course. They're going to be capable of getting rid of a base really rapidly if you're not careful. 3 queens here in total. They're going to be absolutely necessary. Now, luckily for Nerchio, he does already have the Spore Crawler here as well. 4th queen now also joining in, and it does look like Nerchio will be able to deflect this Void Ray hit squad. But of course, they will just simply go ahead and regenerate some of that energy, and Nerchio is definitely going to have to deal with those in just a little while. He recognizes it as well, and immediately puts down that Spore Crawler right after getting himself the 3rd hatchery here as well. In the meantime, DNS has just been powering out more and more workers. Now, going for that robotics facility, wouldn't be surprised if he maybe goes for like a 3rd nexus here in just a little bit. The creep spread still trying to go strong here through the center of the map, and I really do like that. Oh my god, that's so cute. Look at that. I really like that situation here for our Zerg player. Creep Tumor does actually get killed there as well, and DNS set up a single one of these stasis wards just to be a bit of a nuisance and to maybe force the kill right there on the hatchery. Hatchery, of course, is going to take a lot of damage from prismatic alignment. At the same time, those Zerglings and Roaches are trying to make a move across the map once again. Nice little bit of micro though here by DNS. It does look like he may very well be forced back here in the nick of time, but at the same time, right, Zerglings and Roaches making their way across. There's really only 2 adepts available. A couple of Zealots now also warped in here as well. Mass recall on the Void Rays. Looks like every single one of those Protoss units did indeed stay alive, but Nerchio manages to keep this base. I actually was getting a little bit worried there for our Zerg player. I thought that the 3rd base would end up dying there, and I think if the kill was indeed forced there by our Protoss, he would have been in a really bad situation. I mean, the Zerg player, that is, obviously. You really need to start powering out those workers, because at this point, right, DNS is matching the Zerg's economy, and that's not really where you want to be. In the meantime, he's going to try and push that economy a little bit more, and I love this by DNS. Immediately moving down towards that 3rd Nexus location. Yes, it's very late, but you have to keep in mind, right? If he took it earlier, the Zerglings and the Roaches with the run-by would have definitely killed it. Instead, he just simply sat on his 2 bases for a little while, got some more production going before securing the 3rd, and right now, pretty much no matter what, he should be able to hold on to this base, even if Zerg goes for a very aggressive push as a follow-up. Looks like DNS is making that switch towards the Archon Zealot style. Of course, Warp Prism now available here as well. It's gonna really help out when it comes to warping in the reinforcements. There's no Observer just yet. It looks like that's actually Revelation right here on top of all of those Creep Tumors. Nicely done there as well by our Protoss player, really trying to slow down the advancement of the creep spread. Even though DNS managed to hold on though, right now he's once again behind when it comes to the economy. Nerchio droning up at the perfect moment. Question is, does he have enough available right now to hold on to this Protoss counter-attack? There are a lot of queens. I actually am quite surprised here. 8 queens as a follow-up after losing the first couple that he had. I guess they are the ones that you want to go, but here we go. Immediately, though, the Zealots are charging forward. The Archons in the back trying to pick off whatever they can. These Spore Crawlers, though, really aiding here as well when it comes to the defense. And it looks like DNS will get shut down. I really like that decision to go for more queens. This is not something you usually see Zerg players do. Usually they try to rely on actually that one. Oh, that's a big pickup there as well, right there on that Archon. But usually you see the Protoss player making the transition towards like a big aggressive push, and then the Zerg is just simply sitting on Roaches and Hydras instead. But I really feel like those queens, and then also the positioning right there of those Spore Crawlers was really nicely done. Nerchio just simply morphing or moving the one over from the third base towards this location instead. Now the queens are looking to try and see if they can get the snipe on the Warp Prism, while indeed the majority of the Zerg army is now caught inside of a stasis ward on the other side of the map. Fourth base has now been secured here by Nerchio as well, usually one of the troubles for a Zerg player on this map. All of the units, though, just about to come out of stasis. There's no storm available, but there are a lot of Archons here for our Protoss player. It looks like there is definitely going to be enough here for our Protoss to push this Zerg army back. Of course, Roaches as well as Hydras, they're pretty vulnerable against an Archon Immortal-based style. DNS does need to be careful that he's not going to overextend here, but it does look like Nerchio will be forced back onto the safety of the creep. Sonic Storm now being started up here as well for DNS. He's now going for a Forge finally as well, and that means that he can really start powering out more and more upgrades. I'm curious to see what DNS plans on doing on this map. It's really difficult to secure more bases just because how small it is. And if you're gonna try and take the fourth up here, right, usually that kind of leaves your natural rather vulnerable as well, although I guess a single Zealot will kind of hold the line here for quite a little while as well. Warp Prism now moving across. I like this a lot. Picking up a couple of worker kills here and there. There we go. 3 worker kills. All of the Zealots live. As long as the Warp Prism doesn't die, he's going to be in a really nice position. Although it does look like the Zealots will be sacrificed here. They do get a few Hydras for their troubles as well. In the meantime, DNS has moved a probe over towards the northern end of the map. You will need 4 bases in order to transition towards that maxed out Protoss ball that a lot of Zerg players are very, very scared of. Nerchio kind of stuck at this Roach Hydra base composition. He is going to be able to clean up this Zealot Warp in once again, right? But Roach Hydra, I'm sure we are all aware of that. Roach Hydra really does fall off the longer that the game goes. There's no denying that it is very strong, but once Protoss starts maxing out, I mean, you max out so much quicker if you're the Zerg on this kind of army composition just because of the value of Hydras and Roaches in particular. I mean, Roaches, they take 2 supply each. They're not really 2 supply worthy, I suppose. Once upon a time, actually, during the beta of Wings of Liberty, there were 1 supply. Imagine that right now in StarCraft. It'd be absolutely crazy. Once again, though, as soon as the Zerg player moves out, then this will force the entirety of the Roach Hydra army to go back home. The Roaches will be needed here to defend against these Zealot Warpins that DNS is continuously leaving behind, and this really buys a bunch of time. So Nexus here at the northern end of the map will finish up in just a little bit. Looks like for the time being, DNS is gonna stick on this Immortal Archon-based style with Storm and of course a bunch of Gateway units here for support as well. Really liking this composition, in particular if Nerchio is still gonna stick to Roaches and Hydras. There's no Lurker then to be seen anywhere. He is gonna try and transition to what is likely going to be a Greater Spire here in just a little bit, with that Hive now started up as well. Gotta hand it to Nerchio though, with the amount of creep threat that he's got so far. He's now also finally on top of that Warp Prism, leaving a couple of those units behind here as well. But still, this is getting a little bit awkward. A Biogenesis, I mean, it's got a lot of really tight chokes. There are a couple, well, there's actually only a single sentry there. I guess that's mostly just for the Guardian Shield, just to make sure you can reduce some of that incoming damage. But here we go. DNS has got a near maxed out army. He's gonna be able to make a move across the map right at this point in time. I would actually really have liked it if he got himself like a second sentry here as well. This one is going to run out of energy very, very rapidly. Still taking it very slowly though. At the same time, Warp Prism is moving here, but Hydras are all over that. In the meantime though, Nerchio has indeed now secured the bottom left-hand corner of the map. He's got creep pretty much everywhere, and this is what Nerchio does very well. Spire will likely be morphed into a Greater Spire in just a little bit as well, now that Nerchio is indeed just about to finish up his Hive tech. And one of the things that's worth noting as well here for our Protoss, it is that he hasn't quite made the transition towards, for example, a Fleet Beacon or more Stargates or anything along those lines just yet. It's just gonna be this army here that our Protoss player is trying to work with. And it is a very menacing army. There's no denying in that, but I'm starting to get a little bit worried. What if, for example, Brute Lords start roaming the map? But hold that thought, Nerchio doesn't need Brute Lords. He knows that this Protoss army is indeed caught out on the map, and instead, he's going for a massive Overlord Doom drop into the natural of the Protoss player. Banelings coming out first, a single one right here into that main base as well. Protoss, in the meantime, has decided that this is enough. He's gonna try and move forward here with the majority of this army as well. These High Templar, they're gonna be absolutely critical. Banelings trying to connect with those. It looks like the High Templar will stay alive here for the time being. 26 probes, though, end up dying in just a matter of seconds. DNS desperately trying to hold on. Zerg reinforcements, though, are coming up right now, and it's mostly gonna be Zerglings, which, of course, are gonna be absolutely incredible against this predominantly immortal-based army. Hydras will be able to gun down that War Prism there as well, and DNS is caught in the middle of creep while his natural is absolutely getting massacred. And that Doom drop there of Nerchio definitely turned the tides of battle very, very quickly. He does get the Greater Spire out right now as well, but apparently he decided that he doesn't really need it, as he is just simply going for a massive Doom drop, leaving the reinforcements to clean everything up instead. Very nicely done there by Nerchio, trying to just simply pick up some of those weakened Zerg units right now as well, and I think that these Overlords are just simply gonna go back home again. Beautiful play there by our Zerg player from Poland. Really nicely done. Now, this is a map, right, that usually is really tricky to play for a Zerg. Nerchio actually, now mostly treating the base in the bottom left as like a macro hedge. Still microing back and forth here with a few of these Overlords, but right now, right, Corruptors are coming up, and I think that means that Nerchio is likely looking to switch towards Brutes in just a little bit. DNS, he needs this base. He cannot lose his fourth. He does still have a pretty scary amount of units, though. A couple of the Banelings, once again, trying to make their way towards the mineral line. Not getting a whole lot of worker kills right there, but at the same time, right, once again, the Roaches and the Hydras that were still in these Overlords, they were dropped off as well. Still a lot of the charge slots, as well as this Protoss army. It's just simply moving forward, trying to take care of some of that retreating Zerg army. Here's the thing. The Brute Lords are coming up. Remember those queens from earlier? They have accumulated a ton of energy. They've been spreading creep left and right, and it really allows them to now transfuse all of these brutes as well. There's 5 in total here for our Zerg, which I really, really like. Hydras and Roaches, though, headed into the main base. It does look like they will be picked off here by these gateway units. But DNS, he doesn't know about this army. Does he have Blink? Yeah, he does have Blink. Okay, I was gonna say, if he doesn't have Blink, he's gonna be in a world of hurt. He also still has Storm, which can deal quite a bit of damage to brutes in particular. But I think that Nerchio is just simply gonna try and sit back, remax out on this, you know, side of the map, and then move across. I think that's the correct call to make. A lot of creep tumors once again coming up here for Nerchio as well. He's just simply saturating bases now that the main and the natural as well as the third are starting to run low. So it's just, you know, throwing the drones around. Even the base over here has been taken. DNS will find about that one right now, or find out about that one right now. I think that DNS's best option at this point is to try and just simply max out. Make a massive army, and then move across the map, cross your fingers, and hope you get a really good engagement. At this point, right, with that big Doom drop, it seems like the game is in the lead here of our Zerg player. Here we go, though. Centrifugal Hooks has finished up on those Banelings. They're going to try and roll forward. Great micro there, actually, by the Protoss player. He will be able to sacrifice one of those Archon, but that's definitely a trade he will take for like 20 Banelings there. Maybe a little bit less than 20, but there's no denying that that was a lot of Zerg. Hydras now trying to do some damage here from the high ground. Banelings once again coming in, but here are the Brutes. And the Brutes, they are so very scary. Zealots now charging on top of all of those Banes as well. Banelings will connect with the majority of this army. 14 drones, though, going down. DNS trying to make the most of this scenario. He did never retake his natural, and that's the thing that I'm a little bit worried for. The economy is really starting to look pretty bad. Couple of infestors now trying to also fungal this oh my god, that's so cool. He's funneling that army to try and catch up with the Brute Lords. Now, Brute Lords, they're just flying across. They're not quite as fast as they are in the heart of the Swarm campaign, but now with with the Zergling reinforcement, the particular ones in Adrenal Glands finishes up, which it will in just about 5 seconds. This is a Zerg army that you cannot underestimate. Zerglings, they deal so much damage once they get their attack speed upgrade, and while indeed DNS is desperately trying to hold on, warping in more and more Stalkers to try and deal with those brutes, if there's one unit that is great against Stalkers, of course, it is going to be the Zergling, in particular with Adrenal Glands. Now, the War Prism trying to see if it can deal some damage as well. It dropped off a couple of Archons. Eventually, it does look like that Queen will be able to snipe it as well, and I think that that is all she wrote here for DNS. Now, DNS, he's not going to GG out just yet, which I really like. I think sometimes you need to, you know, fight until the very end, right? We had this joke going on in the StarCraft community for a while, called like a fantasy GG timing. Fantasy in particular, a Terran player was notorious for not GGing out until, you know, the very last moment. Sometimes we call, you know, StarCraft 2 players, you know, we say that they GG out a little bit too quickly, even though this looks to be a game that is pretty much impossible to win here for our Protoss player. There's no denying that he's behind, but there's still a small chance, right? Now, Nerchio, he's aware of that too. I like this a lot, right? It's very easy at this point to overextend. Honestly, the fact that Nerchio is staying home here is showing the level of caliber that we're talking about. Because it's very tempting to just simply box all of your units, right, in one big control group and then move across the map. Instead, he's sitting back, he's splitting up his army, making sure he can't really take any kind of crazy losses at this point in the game, building up that eco, knowing very well that his opponent is gonna run out of resources here in just a little bit. There we go, though. The Brute Lords, I mean, there are so many of them available. Fungal growth now even going down on top of all of those Stalkers, and Nerchio in a very well fought game will be the one who obtains the victory. I hope you enjoyed watching this game. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Special shout out to the Patreon supporters, you guys are awesome. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright, and I will see you in the next one.